you know, Hell Week, a lot of people have heard about it. Going through it is unbelievable. It's hellacious. so, you only get like 2.5 hours of sleep the whole week, and they decide when you're going to sleep. When I came back as an instructor, I remember going through it going, oh my God, this is unbelievable what I went through. Most of the class doesn't make it. You get 70 to 90% attrition rate in SEAL training. But, pushing yourself, not being able to have sleep, and you can see that it has a negative effect on your body. Everybody got dinged up really, really bad, swelling. I had chafe between my legs from having the life jacket on and running with it. And when you're wet and sandy and that life jacket's, strapped between your legs, it causes a lot of chafing. So there was a lot of us that, the week after Hell Week, they're really gentle on you, if you can say that. But you get more time to sleep because that's the most important thing. I remember after Hell Week was over, they let us go get some chow, and they said, you guys need to go get your chow, and then you go back and you can sleep. And we got back, I think it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I remember waking up like 9 or 10 the next day, and then sleeping through the weekend pretty much, just going to eat, coming back and sleeping. So sleep is very, very important. Now, after that experience, for the longest time, I could go to sleep on a whim. I could be, I could be standing. I watched some of the students with a boat on their head. They're all wet and they're shivering. And I would say, okay, stand there. And when it's your time to go use the bathroom, you can go. And they would go to sleep, and you can see their limbs, catch themselves before they fell. So it's amazing, but sleep is very, very important. So I learned to be able to go to sleep at an instant, because you need that sleep. And as someone that's been in wars and all kind of crazy stuff, I can tell you that if you don't have good sleep, you're not gonna perform as well.
Yeah. Well, and to talk about how absolutely important sleep is, think about how detrimental it is, right? Like as a soldier, here's the plan. You're going to lay down. You're going to be basically unconscious, right? There is this ability to kind of hear things and wake up, but basically unconscious for 8 hours every night. And, collectively, maybe even as a tribe, this doesn't make sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? Like if there was some way to evolve out of sleep, you would have thought that we would have done it. In fact, you think of every species sleeps, every single one. And some even in situations where you're like, really, how does that happen? Dolphins, remember, they're mammals, they breathe air. How do they sleep? And they actually have what's called biphasic sleep, where half of their brain goes to sleep at a time, so that the other half can continue to take them up to the surface and get the air that they need to breathe. So it's like it is the worst possible scenario to lay down and be basically prey for 8 hours, and yet every species continues to do it. That's how important it is. I kind of like to describe it as the best medicine and healing that you will ever receive, and it's basically free, right? So we want to talk about that, and of course there's a tie into why we're talking about that. But I do have a presentation. I think it's there you go. Yeah. So like I said, universal among species, and it's essential for survival. And we're going to talk about some of the negative things that can happen when you don't get sleep. First, I love to talk about this guy. His name is Dr. Matthew Walker. He wrote this book, Why We Sleep. And I call it the scariest book you'll ever read about sleep. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, right? Remember Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, yeah.
He actually scared you out of your dreams. This kind of gentle, blue-eyed face on the screen right now will scare you into your dreams. In fact, in his opening part of his book, he shares that if, unlike most authors, if while reading this book you were to fall asleep, I would take it as a great compliment because the whole purpose, it's 25 years of the negative things that will happen to you if you don't get enough sleep. And it's really powerful. And interestingly, his career started actually focusing on Alzheimer's, and he noticed this correlation with Alzheimer's and poor sleep, that the next 25 years he spent thinking about sleep.
Wow.
And so let's talk about, what is the importance of sleep, what's going on in sleep. A couple of things drive your sleep, right? So one of them is circadian rhythm. This is this process of typically getting some sunlight in the morning, getting your physiology in tune with the rising and falling of the sun. And this is what will help you sleep in the evening. The other piece is actually adenosine. So we'll talk about mitochondria. Mitochondria produces the energy for your cells to use, and that energy is ATP. You may have heard of that before. You probably didn't know that the A stands for adenosine. So as that ATP is used up, adenosine builds up in your system, and that buildup of adenosine causes you to desire sleep, right? So throughout the day, it's building up, you're desiring more sleep. Then you get your sleep that relaxes that chemical pressure of adenosine. So interesting, one of the contrasts of our products, or we'll talk more about it, but our most consistent testimonials, people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. That's a big contrast to the quote unquote sleep aid. So Dr. Matthew Walker talks about these prescription sleep aids and what they do, right? So we're all familiar, Ambien is one of them. We're all familiar that we don't know exactly what they're doing, and let me describe to you, because it's not what you think, right? These are depressants that knock you unconscious. They do relax the chemical pressure of adenosine, but they don't allow you to get the restorative and healing sleep that you need. So imagine 10 days in a row, you wake up and you're exhausted. You still have this adenosine buildup. You still desire sleep. And then you take this quote unquote sleep aid. You wake up the next day and the adenosine pressure has been released. You feel like you don't need sleep. That would feel amazing. The problem is you haven't gotten the NREM and the REM sleep, and we'll talk about that. That's the healing and restorative sleep.
Yep.
And I like to contrast that with our product. You take it in the morning and get better sleep at night. With these quote unquote sleep aids, you're taking them right before you go to sleep. Feel free to jump in if you've got any questions or anything. I can see you. You're a little tiny person on my screen, but I can see you.
Yeah. So you mentioned there's a couple things. You mentioned Alzheimer's and sleep deprivation that they have. I remember my grandfather lived with us for a period of time, for about a year, maybe 2 years at the most, when I was a teenager, and he had Alzheimer's, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. But I never, hardly ever saw him sleep, and it was very tragic. My mom would, I could hear my mom because I could hear him moving around at night, and my mom would like come in and say, "Dad, go to sleep," and so he never slept. And that was, kind of what we're talking about here. Your brain never gets to rest and go into that REM, the alpha, theta, delta brainwave patterns where if you don't go into those brain consciousness states, you don't get healing. So the drugs you take that basically suppresses you forces you to go to sleep, that's not activating the healing aspect. So that's great points.
Well, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, I need to," some might, will say, "Oh, I'll have a drink before I go to sleep because it helps me fall asleep." And that's actually true. It can help you fall to sleep, but the alcohol interrupts your sleep. Again, the quality. Are you getting here? We're looking at NREM, the REM. You're usually getting 4 to 6 cycles of NREM. I like to joke, actually, Matthew Walker jokes, you've got REM sleep, right? Rapid eye movement sleep. That's when we're dreaming and processing emotions often. And then he says that sleep scientists aren't very creative, so they created NREM sleep, which is just not REM sleep. They didn't come up with anything more creative than not REM sleep. So those are really important, and you don't end up getting that REM. That REM sleep is interrupted when you have alcohol in your system, when you have these depressants in your system. So you've got deep sleep, really important to get deep sleep. You're getting tissue repair, growth hormone is released, your immune system is reactivated, and we're going to talk about here in a second the significant detrimental impact of just having a 4 to 6 hours of sleep night versus a full. Dr. Matthew Walker recommends 7.5 to 9, what he calls 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity. Right, so you don't necessarily have to be asleep, but you need to be in bed, quiet, not reading, and that sleep opportunity, and really need to have somewhere between 7.5 and 9 hours. And then, REM sleep is memory consolidation, emotional processing. I remember seeing a presentation once that they were talking about kind of young teenage athletes and how when they train, they need a full-on 8 hours of sleep to actually entrain their brains for the physical motions, right? So if, say, you're a pitcher, you're doing pitching and you're getting better each day. If you don't get proper sleep, you don't lock in those movements, right? You don't get that muscle memory, and has a detrimental effect. I don't know if you were going to add something.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. So there's people that are talking, good chat going on. There's, some people get great sleep. Most people get great sleep in this group because I think a lot of people are using the C60 Evo, but it is, something that is very valuable. I remember, going to sleep. Like I said, I could go to sleep, in an instant. Remember, we did the Panama invasion, and we're in a huge hangar, and there's guys coming and going constantly through the day, through the night, going on missions and so forth. And they had the lights on all the time. So even with the lights on and people coming and going, I could still lay down on a cot that's very uncomfortable and, next to all, in rows and rows of people, and I could go to sleep. Boom. So it is very important. And when you're stressed, combat, obviously, as a lot of people can imagine, is kind of stressful. And
just a little stressful.
I might die anytime now. So you have that weight on you. But for me, I just kind of go into this different state of consciousness, and I've learned to do that over time. It's very centered. I'm calm and cool and collected, because I know on the other side of that, it makes me vulnerable. So, and the same thing with not getting enough sleep, having a good diet, exercise, all those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sleep is one of the pillars, like an absolute pillar of health, of if you're trying to be a bodybuilder or if you're trying to just make any progress from a physicality side of things. Sleep is one of those pillars. I don't know if you knew this. My wife is from Panama. And she remembers the invasion. So you were over in her neck of the woods at that time. She remembers the bombs. She remembers the whole thing. So it's
burning. Yeah.
Yeah.
The airstrikes, the C-130s with their, they got the cannon on board, and they were like hammering the Comandancia. The yacht that Noriega used, I was right across the Panama Canal from that, and it's the first time ever in history the Navy SEALs went in and planted a limpet mine on that boat and that yacht and blew it up so we couldn't escape that way. So very interesting stuff. Very interesting time.
Man, what an experience, and kind of cool. There's a parallel with my wife there. So the fundamental, right, and we've probably maybe even belabored this, is that sleep's an active biological state that restores the brain and regulates the body's major symptoms. Now, what is that? I saw somebody in the comments, they say, I'm great after 7 hours of sleep. There are some people who need less sleep. It's a pretty small percentage of the population, like in the range of 5%, that can actually survive on, say, 6.5 or less hours of sleep. But so for us normal humans, it is 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity. So if you just deprive your sleep, if you only get 4 hours of sleep, you actually have a 70% reduction in natural killer cell activity. This is your body's defense system. It's your body's defense system against cancer. It's also lowers your viral resistance. I mean, we don't think in terms of sleep. I think we mostly think in terms of sleep as I feel groggy, maybe I need an extra cup of coffee. We don't necessarily think of it having an absolute physiological impact. And actually the next slide is kind of cool because there's a dramatic impact, and we'll talk about that. I mean, not that 70% reduction in natural killer cell activity is not dramatic. From a cardiovascular, this is after about 4 to 5 hours of sleep deprivation. You're getting your blood pressure over a 24-hour period is increased. You're having inflammation and your endothelial dysfunction. So, and endothelial dysfunction. So endothelial cells are the cells that line your vessels. These are the vessels, your vessels obviously need to function properly in order to maintain good blood pressure and good blood flow. And so it's an early driver of atherosclerosis if you're not getting proper sleep. And then also, if you, after 4 to 5 nights of short sleep, you're getting a 20 to 30% reduction in insulin sensitivity, right? So you'll start putting on weight. It's actually well documented that you'll eat more after you get less sleep, right? So you're doing so many negative things start to compound when you're not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I'm going to tell you, let me sneak back here. I'm going to share with you some results from a multi-billion person study that happens not once a year, but actually twice a year. And if you're like me, when I first kind of heard this, and this, again, I really first heard this in Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, you're like, hey, you can't even get a study, a clinical trial of 10,000 people. Like, that's tough. How are you doing multi-billion? And the answer is daylight savings time, right? So every year, it's across 1.6 billion people. It's 70 countries, and we shift and gain an hour one part of the year and lose an hour the other part of the year. And in that part of the year where we lose 1 hour of sleep, there is a 24% increase in heart attacks. Right? So again, it's not just, I need an extra cup of coffee. I feel more distracted. It's actual physiological differences. If you look at that,
I brought that up because I have been bitching about this for decades. And I'm like, and we see the population of the United States, 70, 80% of us don't want these time changes. And Congress is like, yeah, we're going to fix this. We're going to stop that. And they never do. It's part of our, we can't trust our government. They're against us. But this is a great study right there. It's like, look, guys. You're killing us by doing these time changes. It's insane.
You're literally causing heart attacks. I think it's not just, there's heart attacks because they're debating it in Congress, and if you're watching it, that gives you a heart attack. But there's actual physical heart attacks that are happening. When we gain that hour of sleep, 21%. There's a 21% reduction in heart attacks. And by the way, there's similar data for accidents, for car accidents rates. Right? So when we lose, and not surprising, right? We're distracted. We're not able to function as well. And so we're seeing you have a similar 20 some odd % increase in car accidents. You have a 21% or 20 some odd decrease in car accidents when we get that extra hour of sleep. So it is absolutely has a dramatic physiological impact on us. And so it's important
to know that too, because everybody wants to keep it at that, the hour. So we want it to stay there. So obviously people are seeing it, feeling it, and seeing the difference, observing the difference in others. So it's tragic that happens. But, those of us that, can go to sleep on a whim, it's like, oh, well, I'll adjust.
Well, and we also have, right, with our product, I can speak to, jet lag. Jet lag is an absolute sleep disruption kind of result. And when my wife and I are traveling, we just barely feel any jet lag, right? We hit the ground, we're running. It's pretty fantastic. And that's because, well, a couple of things that I think is if we look at, what happens in sleep, right? There's this, I kind of picture it, this is not the exact right way to picture it, but there's this checklist, right? You got to do tissue repair, you got to do hormone release, you've got to do emotional consolidation. So you have this checklist that you have to go through every night. And because of what we think we're doing, according to the boss theory, in the mitochondria, I think it just speeds up that, like a couple things are already checked off that checklist. So your sleep process can move on to the next thing on the list a lot faster. And then that's kind of the way I picture it to help me understand what's going on. And then because our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night, we did this, I call it an ad hoc sleep study, which really just means kind of informal. We have survey questions, and it was a crossover study. So that's pretty important because what it does is we collected 10 days of survey data. Now the surveys are like, rate your sleep, how easy was it to fall asleep, how restless was your sleep. So we collected 10 days of data prior to taking the product, 10 days on the product, 10 days back off the product, and then 10 days back on the product. So you can see blue was prior to product, red was while they were on it on the product for 10 days, yellow off the product for 10 days, and then green back on the product. So this is the aggregate of the data, right? This is the average of the data, but 100% of the participants reported improvements in sleep when they were on the product, right? So this is just confirmation of what we thought. We are working on doing, we're hoping that it will be ready by the end of this year, a formal clinical trial on sleep, because again, it is our most consistent testimonial. And then now I can, let me know if you've got any questions about sleep. I can kind of jump into what is this molecule and, what are the special things about it and what we think it's probably doing in our systems.
No, you're doing good. The pineal gland is important here. What's that one thing the pineal gland produces for sleep?
Melatonin.
Melatonin, thank you. So I read about that, because I was traveling overseas all the time, and I was like, it would take me like depending on every hour, it seemed to take, and it was sometimes I would go like 9-10 hour time change. So it'd take me at least a day for every hour to get in line. And for the first, several days, I was a zombie. I was like, but I started taking melatonin, and it made a huge difference. So what are your thoughts on C60, having some kind of effect on that? Because I can tell you, I've been taking, so I can relate this, because I used to take melatonin all the time. I don't take it anymore because I take C60.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference. And I don't have any problems really. Tracy and I both, we travel back and forth across the country, overseas and so forth. We don't have a problem with the sleep at all.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the parallel when I get into the method of action. What Matthew Walker kind of pointed out, which is, melatonin is interesting because what melatonin actually does in your system, he calls it like a firing gun to tell your physiology it's time to get ready to sleep, right? So that would be beneficial, like you're 3 hours off of your sleep cycle. If you can take this melatonin to get you on track closer, that's great. But it does require that you take the right dosage at the right time, right? Because if you get the timing or the dosage off, it would not be good at 1 o'clock in the morning for your physiology to be thinking, oh, it's time for my physiology to get ready to go to sleep. No, like if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, like you should be asleep and stay asleep. So you really do have to be careful with melatonin, but it absolutely has its place, and you just described it, like it helped you with that. There are some parallels in where melatonin is valuable in the mitochondria and this ESS60 molecule. So here, it's a beautiful molecule. There's actually a book called The Most Beautiful Molecule. It's about the ESS60 molecule. It was discovered in 1985. The 3 scientists who discovered it, that's Dr. Smalley, Dr. Croto, that's actually Dr. Croto, and that's Dr. Curl. They won the Nobel Prize for the discovery in 1996. Our lab actually started manufacturing it 5 years before they won the Nobel Prize. So we are the oldest and longest manufacturer and distributor of this molecule on the planet, and very proud to say that. And so next slide, this is the boss theory. This is the key thing that we think is going on. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s when it was discovered that this ESS60 molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So how does that manifest in the mitochondria? So first off, quick refresh. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for your blood cells, which actually have 0, and your brain and neurons, which have 2 million. Now, it's kind of not surprising. We've got this positive buffering oxidative stress system in the mitochondria. There's 2 million mitochondria in each brain cell. To have a positive impact on sleep isn't a stretch, right? It makes perfect sense that that's going on. Like every power source, right? The mitochondria is the power source of every cell. Like every power source we're familiar with, there are negative byproducts. You think about your car going down the road, it's got exhaust. You think about a power plant, it's got a smokestack with smoke coming out. In the case of mitochondria, it's reactive oxygen species. Now, the way I picture these reactive oxygen species, they're like little bumper cars, right? Everything they smack into, they cause rust, they cause oxidative stress, oxidative damage, which sounds really bad, and it is, but just like most of our physiological systems, there is a system to manage those reactive oxygen species. In the case of mitochondria, it's the antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin. Right, here we are, melatonin, the sleep hormone, right here where we believe the ESS60 molecule is operating and being a buffer. So there's some really nice parallels with melatonin, as I mentioned. So you can see here in the healthy mitochondria, you've got these reactive oxygen species. They're bonded with melatonin or glutathione, so they're beautiful blue color. They're not causing any problems. They're being managed. But what happens when you stress a mitochondria? So first off, how do you stress a mitochondria? I like to point out, if you're alive in modern society, you have stressed mitochondria. It could be smoking, drinking. It can be EMF radiation from your cell phone, all of the EMFs that we're getting exposed to on a daily basis, monitors. It can be tough conversations, tough emails that you're managing, right? We're not wired for this modern era. We're kind of wired for a more primitive. When it's a stressful situation, our mitochondria produce more energy right away. And when they do, they start producing more reactive oxygen species than the internal glutathione and melatonin can manage. So they do manage some, right? You can see some of these baby blue reactive oxygen species, they're not running around like little bumper cars. But this stressed mitochondria is producing more reactive oxygen species. And those are the ones that, if they're left to their own devices, run around like little bumper cars, rusting everything they smack into. And that's where the ESS60 molecule comes into play. Again, we know from peer-reviewed published research, it's in the mitochondria. We also know it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So we believe it holds on to these negatively charged particles so they can't do any damage. And then when that particular mitochondria replenishes the glutathione and replenishes the melatonin, then it comes in and manages those appropriately. So I don't know, I'm sure at some point I've shared my Mardi Gras analogy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of fun, right? I believe like all biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras. A lot of biology happens with Mardi Gras. I'm going to turn this off for just 1 second. We'll come back to it. If you can pull me off the screen, or you can leave that. So think about, it's the end of Mardi Gras, and you have these drunk reactive oxygen species on Bourbon Street acting like these little bumper cars, causing oxidative stress, spray painting the walls, smashing windows. And you have the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and the melatonin, coming on to Bourbon Street, handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what happens when the New Orleans Police Department gets overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they put them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of this ESS60 molecule so they can't run around like little bumper cars. And then when the New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione and replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that is why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. And the whole kind of summary is, we believe that we're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And if you reduce the negative impact of stress mitochondria, you should have systemic benefits. You should have what we have, which are head to toe testimonials.
Wow. Yeah. And, I've been thinking about how you were talking about the melatonin. And the guy that wrote the book was like, it's kind of like, you're under the gun type thing. And I kind of noticed that. It was like, it was basically telling my body to go to sleep. It wasn't like I just kind of slipped into it. And it was nice and natural. It was kind of like pressing. And although I used it, for a while, I got to the point where, it seems to be like you talk about, it's like pressing me to go to sleep. And I'm never one to be pressed for any reason whatsoever. And that's what I love about C60, because it's very natural. It's very smooth. I don't even, I go to sleep. I go to sleep now. There have been times where, I've been, maybe because I'm not in combat anymore, I don't have that stress anymore. So it puts me to sleep. But, I need something to help me sometimes get over that edge. And I think that C60 is very, very natural on multiple levels. I mean, it's not just about sleep. It's so many different things, but I'm looking forward to the study results. It's going to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, and already our ad hoc study, right? It's not very often that you can say 100%. It was a small cohort, but 100% of the participants reported improvements in sleep when they were on the product, right? So it's not just the aggregate of the data says it's a good thing. It's like every individual in the study said it was a good thing for their sleep. So I think that's fantastic. We're excited about that. We're working on a headache study, clinical trial. We're hoping to get these started by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. These are complicated and frankly expensive things to do. But a headache study, an HSCRP study, that's HSCRP stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's an inflammatory marker typically associated with cardiovascular disease or cancers. And so we've seen some good results. There's actually already a peer-reviewed published research paper showing improvements in HSCRP in beagles, the beagles, right? So we're excited about doing that. The next one is... what is the next one? Oh, the sleep study, right? So headaches, HSCRP, sleep, and then finally we're going to do a wrinkle and age spot study because of the testimonials about our cosmetic products. So it's I'm excited. Hopefully we can get that started before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so you talked about the inflammation type thing. Of course, we can't make any claims or anything, but there has been evidence that people have had a great reduction in inflammation. So that stands to reason that inflammation in the brain, and you're reducing that, that would lower the incidence of headaches and so forth. And you've talked about that with yourself as well.
Yeah, well, with me in particular, I mean, we actually have a collection of probably about 5 super powerful testimonials that have kind of driven us to start this headache study. And in my particular case, I am the geeky guy you see in front of you. I have a spreadsheet back to 2014. I was tracking my headaches. Wow. And the reason I was tracking them is, I was getting 4 to 5 per year. They're just so miserably painful. I was trying to figure out what was causing them. How do I get rid of them? I never want to have this experience again. And then when I started taking this at the beginning of 2018, I went 18 months without a single headache, right? Well, we'll say a headache of that severity, and which is fantastic, right? At this point, I should have had 6 to 7, and I had 0. The reason that I ended up getting a headache, a powerful headache, was because I went off of the product to join our sleep study. And so 18 months, everything was good. I will share, I'm always transparent. I do get about 1 or 2 per year now, but the severity is it's life-changingly different. So for now, the way mine work is I get a little bit of aura, so I kind of know it's coming, like a little bit of blurriness on the peripheral of my vision. And one little sliver of my vision kind of looks like a kaleidoscope, and it migrates from my peripheral into my center field of vision. But I can work through it. right? Like the previous ones, I would need to go into a quiet room. It would need to, be totally silent, no light, no noise, as I've mentioned. And this is not the same thing, right? This is something that is irritating. I can work through it. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to read through a kaleidoscope. It's not easy, but if I had to, I can actually read around the edges of that kaleidoscope field of vision, that aura. But when I've done that, it is actually a little bit painful. But that all lasts for about 20 minutes. So I'm still working, I'm still accomplishing stuff, and then I just go about my day. And that is not go to a cold, dark, silent room. That is just go about your day. And so, yeah, it's been a night or day experience, and that's exactly why we're running that study.
Very good. Very amazing. So, before we get into the product, did you have any more you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, there's just one more, because people are often asking us, what does it look like? What does the experience look like on the product? And it really is, we think of it more like a 3-month time frame. There really is a good parallel with our most consistent testimonial. Again, people taking it in the morning, reporting mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. With month 1 really being energy and focus. And so the testimonial that I lean on here is we got some product to an influencer. She took it in the morning. She sent in her video that evening, and she pointed out that she didn't finish her cup of coffee. Now, if you're a coffee drinker, right, like it's a big deal not to finish it. It's super big if you actually notice that you didn't finish it. You're like, I feel like, I don't need it. And I will share, I used to be a 2 to 3 cup of coffee per day person.
Wow.
Now I'm more like a half to 1, and a lot of it's ritual, right? I come to the office, I go to the coffee maker, I make some coffee, I like the taste, but I don't really need it anymore. So that's what we see there. There is also one little piece. It is well documented that if you replace saturated fats with a high quality oil like ours is in a high quality extra virgin olive oil, there can be some weight loss implications. So that's absolutely true. Next, month 2,
I do a lot of caffeine too. I remember when I ran the Navy SEALs first hand-to-hand program, it was 30 days long. So the instructor staff and I would, I bought a espresso machine. So during the day we would all have several espressos, to keep our focus and everything. But I'm like you, I'm down to like just 1 cup of coffee a day, and I could probably do like half a cup. But yeah, very rare that I do more than that now.
Yeah. No, when I first started taking this on a regular basis, it wasn't part of my coffee routine yet. That's the other reason I don't want to get rid of my coffee routine, because that's actually when I take my C60 Evo. But when I first started taking this on a more regular basis, I could get to the afternoon, and if I felt like I needed a nap or I needed another cup of coffee, I could always look back and I hadn't taken my C60 Evo that morning. Right now, it's part of my coffee routine, and so that just doesn't happen. So month 2 looks like deeper sleep. And in reality, I think that's happening earlier on, but everybody gets a little bit more or less sleep every night, right? Like nobody's getting exactly 7.5 hours every single night. And so it can be hard to kind of pinpoint that, I started taking C60 Evo and that's why my sleep has been better, because you're getting a little bit more or less sleep. Around month 2, you start to really notice. And I lean on, my business coach shared that for 50 years, he needed an alarm clock to wake up. When he started taking C60 Evo, he wakes up before the alarm clock. Now, I like to point out, he's a business coach, right? So he's got late night business mixers, late night business dinners. None of that matters, except when he doesn't have the product for 10 days. Then he starts to need the alarm clock again. And that 10-day testimonial really parallels in the literature. It says that this molecule clears out of your body in about 10 days. So there's a nice parallel there. And then the last one, month 3, is where, you're getting this benefit of reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria and the systemic benefit. And frankly, we get testimonials at this point that we can't share. We've got to do according to the FDA guidelines, we've got to do a lot more research, and frankly, really expensive research, in order to be able to share some of those testimonials. I will share. My father-in-law was walking with a cane Panamanian, as it turns out, is walking with a cane, and right at about the 3-month mark, he stopped needing the cane and consequently started walking farther. Now, if you start walking farther than normal, you're going to have weight loss benefits. So not because of our product, but because he's walking further, he's losing weight. That becomes this amazing cycle of losing more weight, walking even farther. That's the type of systemic benefits we're seeing in month 3.
Wow, that's really, really cool. So yeah, there's so many more benefits that are going to come out of this, and when you look at how the product is made and all the other benefits from it, you're like, gosh, it's going to start to edge into other aspects that are going to be positive as well.
Yeah,
like for me, my toenail, that I had cracked it when I was a 3-year-old, and it was just cracked all my life. And then I started using C60 Evo, after probably about a year or so, it completely healed up.
Yeah, at an age where it's not supposed to, right? Like,
it's like, yeah, it's just there, I just dealt with it all my life. And then it was gone. I was like, wow, the only thing different is, the C60 Evo stuff. So yeah, it's amazing. All the different things are going to start to bleed into. People have already started to talk about, how they're seeing results in other areas. But, again, there's a group that pretty much controls the medical aspect of our lives. And you can't go against that because they're like a mafia, and they make a lot of money. So don't get close to their money making sources. So that's why they press on us to, not share so much.
Yeah, and then I've got your link pulled up, so if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, usually we do a little toast.
Oh yeah,
I always like this. You and I do these toasts.
I'm gonna drink out of my medicine cup here.
We're going to my copper.
I need to get a new bottle. I think I can. Ooh, look, right at 5, a little bit more. Right at 5 mils, which is 1 teaspoon. That's the recommended serving. So, cheers.
It's delicious. I love it.
And I usually will let it swirl around in my mouth for a little bit. It's the Egyptians used to use olive oil as toothpaste, right? And I kind of joke.
There was someone actually made a comment about that in the chat. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. I like to joke. Maybe they were just familiar that they didn't want fluoride in their toothpaste, but but they used olive oil because it's known to be antibacterial and antiviral on contact, and so there's some benefits there.
Very good.
So your link is c60evo.com/unleashing intuition. And what I'm going to recommend you come here is our best specials are at the bottom of the page. There is a coupon code there. You have to go to the page to get that coupon code, so make sure you take advantage of that. But if you just continue scrolling down, our best offers are down here towards the bottom. And this is where we've got our 4 ounce. You can get 2, 3, or 6. We really kind of focus on the 3 or the 6 just for that kind of reason that I described. We think of it as a 3-month experiment, right? A 3-month experience.
Good point.
And for the 6 bottles, you've got a 20% discount there. And the intent was, hey, take advantage of this. Maybe you keep 3 bottles for yourself. Maybe you give 3 bottles to somebody else who might need that 3-month experience. Or, what I would do is I would be selfish and I would probably keep it. But go ahead and take advantage of that discount. And then everything has a discount, a further discount on subscription. So please, even if you just want to try 2, 3, or 6 one time, go ahead and go on subscription. You can cancel that at any time. And don't worry, our customer service team has 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do an amazing job. And then an even better deal, I think, is what we call our inside out set. And that's our advanced facial serum and our 4-ounce bottle. You can get 1, 2, or 2 here. You can get 3 sets here, or again, I would recommend 6 sets. If you're going to take care of yourself on the inside, you also want to take care of yourself on the outside. This advanced facial serum is absolutely amazing. Great ingredients, organic ingredients. The scent is rosemary. It's absolutely spectacular. We get amazing testimonials. I got one right here. I use this regularly. And again, you can go on subscription. You'll save additional money. Even if you just want to try one set or one collection, go ahead and use that subscription and save, and you can cancel at any time.
Beautiful.
And we've got great testimonials here. You can kind of leaf through those. Just great, more great content. And then if there's some of the other products, these are still, of course, it's a great product, but these are some other options that you have available.
Very nice. Of course, great for pets.
Yep. Yeah, we've got a dog lover set and a cat lover set. So take care of yourself and your dog, or yourself and your cat. I always like to joke, we sell a lot more dog product than we do cat product. I know cat lovers love their cats, but they don't seem to love them as much as dog lovers love their dogs.
I think so. Yeah, that's pretty funny, huh? And we see this with everything we do, but we've seen this with this product a lot too. People will buy the product for their pets before they buy it for themselves, and their pets have such great responses. They're like, I gotta get some of this for myself.
Yeah. And what I love about that type of testimonial, right? Look, this is new. If you're hearing about this for the first time, you should be, hey, I wonder what percentage is placebo effect. Because the reality is the placebo effect affects everything. It affects the medications you take. It affects the food you eat, the way you work out. It affects everything. Our brain is that powerful or dumb, right? In this case, with pets, there is no placebo effect. Right? The dog, ironically, isn't smart enough to know that it got a dropper of the C60 Evo today, and now it's supposed to have more energy. It's supposed to be more vibrant. It's supposed to be more whatever connected, and it just acts the way it feels. And so we have just amazing testimonials with dogs, and there is no placebo effect there.
Yeah, and we had a pet. My son-in-law had a pet. With his girlfriend, and it was not doing so well. So we put him on a C60 Evo every day, and he lasted another couple of years. So he was probably getting ready to go. So Patty talked to us about it, and so we put him on the C60 Evo, and he did really well. And unfortunately, pets come and go, but we like to keep them around as long as we can to keep them healthy.
Yeah, as long as possible and as healthy as possible. I agree with that. We have two testimonials of cats that the vet was ready to put down, and they, one of them, I think that was 4 years ago. That cat is still with us.
Yeah, and you've been overseas, with the Arabic countries where they prize their horses massively, and they pay for you to come out and take care of the horses, and it was a great response. So good job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a fantastic adventure over there, helping a polo horse of one of the, we'll say, extremely influential ladies in Dubai.
Nice. Yeah, they really love their horses, and now that this little conflict's going on over there, they're scrambling to get their horses out of the way. Not themselves, but their horses.
Yep.
They value them. Very, very amazing. All right. Great, Chris. I'm a geek like you. I would have been a marine biologist if I hadn't been a Navy SEAL, but I appreciate the scientific side quite a bit. So you always bring that, and you bring that on a massive level, and very easy to understand and comprehend. And so I hope everybody got a lot out of this. The chat was really good, and I think that going forward, as more of this information becomes more prominent as you're doing the studies and so forth, kind of like the rat study, longevity study, and you start to do this, get results from the sleep study, and then the brain health, and all the kind of different things that you're going to do. Wow, this is impressive. Very good. Thank you.
Matt, well, thank you so much. I love to connect with you. We have a great time when we get together, and